So I'm here with Jen Forbes, who is standing for the many slate for your party CEC elections. Thank you so much for coming on Turn Left.
Hello, thanks for having me, Curtis.
I suppose to start with the obvious is, why should people vote for you?
Well, I'm standing as part of the many team, and I think we've got a really positive vision for where we want your party to go. We want to be outward facing, end the infighting, connect with people on mass politics that can engage people, which will help us to get the successes that we want, both through community activism but also at the ballot box. Hopefully from the picket line to the ballot box, I think we can be there if we get our messages right and we create the right kind of internal culture in the party. So that's why I think people should vote for us. I think we can do this together.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting talking about culture and positivity, because obviously the elephant in the room is that the last year of your party has had a lot of drama. So what do you think needs to happen to make sure that the party unified and, the internal drama doesn't really happen anymore?
Well, I mean, part of it will be this election, won't it? I think it's good that we're having a democratic discussion now about where we want things to go. So it's all there out in the open, and we're deciding the members have got the chance to have their say on what they want to see. Then going forwards, we will need to do some healing, I'm sure. I think that having the right kind of structures in place that empower everyone to participate on an equal footing will do an awful lot of good. I think that people want to see branches working properly, opened up to everyone to participate, whether they're brand new to politics or whether they've been experienced for a while. I think if we create that right kind of culture where people are connecting around the issues rather than focusing in on ourselves and that internal fight, that's how we'll get that to happen. And that's why I think it's really important that we do set branches up properly going forwards.
Yeah, because speaking to people across the different slates, many people within your party, it's that policy isn't really, there's no contention on policy. But it seems like strategy and structure. And I think, in my personal opinion, it seems that these are what these CEC elections are about structure, the future of the party, not necessarily policy. Of course, Jeremy Corbyn, who's, in the many slates, was pretty open that he wanted a single leadership model. Of course, the party voted for the collective leadership. Now, I think it's quite clear that politics is all about communication these days. I mean, if we look at the Green Party, Zach Palancy's done a pretty good job of communicating, and the party surged. How does your party kind of focus on the national scale, navigating this very much personality politics? A lot of people want to sort of rally around a national leader when you have a collective leadership model. And of course, your personal opinion might be that you didn't support the collective leadership, but given that you have that now, what sort of strategy, what communication style can you do to make sure that people are really, really listening to what the party's saying?
Yeah, I mean, we accept the conference. We are standing on a platform to be collective leaders from the many. So we are embracing that model. But with the policy that we've put forward to make Jeremy our parliamentary leader, we see Jeremy as our best asset. He's trusted. He connected with millions of people around a socialist programme that people could understand and could see would make a difference for them. So we obviously want to centre our very best asset in our campaigning going forwards, alongside the socialist leadership program that we have developed. So we're recognizing that we do need to bring new people through. We want that kind of politics that Mandani has been using so successfully, connecting with ordinary people about the things that matter most to them. And I think we've got a wealth of talent across this movement. So the collective leadership model allows us to use that. Keeping Jeremy centred going forwards as well will help us build as we go, as we're developing new leaders. And I think we could have a really bright future with that. But yeah, communication has to be everything. And that's why Jeremy's somebody that we think still is very much revered. When the party was first announced, 800,000 people saying that they wanted to join up. The party polled quite highly when there's the prospect of Jeremy Corbyn putting forwards a new political party. We're barely even registering the polls now, so it obviously makes sense to make the most of our best asset.
Yeah, that leads me quite nicely onto this question, because I was going to say that last year your party reached 15% in the polls. But at least one of the polls, I mean, neck and neck with Labour, that's really impressive. They're now on less than 1% in some polls. So in your view, what needs to be done to bring back support, and what will you do to make sure that happens? I appreciate, obviously, Jeremy Corbyn is part of that equation, as you just said. But I think a lot of people, even internally, your party activists have either gone to the Green Party or I feel a bit disheartened given a lot of the issues that happened over the last year. What do you think needs to happen to really regain that support?
So we have to end the infighting. It's absolutely no question. One of the biggest drivers of people deserting us, going to the Greens, is because people are so turned off by that. So it really does matter that everyone's speaking on behalf of the party on any kind of platform isn't running us down or attacking other people. I don't want to see any more attacks on other members of our party. There are no enemies on our side. The enemies are Starmer and Farage. They're the people that we need to be taking this fight to. So we have to have a unified voice, and we have to have people that understand that we build our movement by taking that message out to the public. So ending the infighting is key, and then the right kind of policies. If we keep pushing purity politics tests for people, it alienates so many. We need to be building our base, and we've said that really clearly. We need to be getting out there and connecting with people in communities, rebuilding trust in the coalition that brought this party into fruition. We saw the rise of the opposition to the genocide in Gaza. That brought millions of people out on the streets. That strength of feeling, alongside Muslim communities getting organised, saw us returning independent MPs against the Labour machine, which actually I think we've in some ways lost sight of how incredible that was. It showed us we can beat this two-party system. If we get organised and we bring people together with that strength of purpose and unity, we can do this. And I'm still really inspired by that. But along the way, some of the messaging has been really damaging, and we can't afford to do that. We're never going to leave any minorities behind. I'm always going to be standing up for the oppressed. But we don't always agree on everything. And I think the right kind of politics and the right kind of community action and building bridges those divides. It brings people together. It allows people to understand things from other people's lived experience. And we start to forge new relationships that help us all to get to where we need to be. And so all of that, I think, is absolutely essential for us. If we want to get out there and tell people you're welcome in your party. We have to show them that we mean it in every communication that we do. And I think we can do it. And the many certainly been modelling that through this election. We haven't engaged in the attacks. We're not going low. And I think that shows people you can trust us. This is what we mean. That's what we're going to do if you trust us and put us in position in the CEC.
I appreciate you're just one candidate across many in terms of the many. But I think to ask you on your personal view, did you envision and do you still envision your party being broadly sort of a class-based party, a big broad tent like Syriza, in which your personal politics might be like socially progressive, but you do kind of bring in people who are a bit more conservative on the social view angle in order to sort of say, look, hey, your material conditions are the same as every other working class person? Or is there red lines? Because I think from the outset, it kind of looks like there are people within your party who say, look, it seems like there might be some social conservatives in the party. That's not acceptable. I've heard people say, we don't agree with their social conservative views, but we want a broad-based class party. Where would you put yourself in? I don't want to put you in camps, but where would you put yourself in that sort of arena?
I can answer that really easily. I'm 100% working class. As a parliamentary candidate in 2019, I would have been one of the few people that had ever done a trade. I know that's popular now with the Greens, and good on her for being a plumber. I love that. I was an apprentice BT engineer. It's so rare to see people come through those kind of routes and get into politics. And I think we have to take people with us. I think that the journey is as important as where we're going. So if we create the right kind of culture, the political education will happen along the way. So I definitely don't want to draw those dividing lines. There will be some difficulties. There will be some things that we have to overcome. And we clearly have levels of discourse that are acceptable or not. And we will be actively trying to do that. But I won't be pushing people away. I'll be trying to bring people in with that kind of messaging. I work as an educator as well. I work in trade union education. And lots of people, when they're new to trade unionists, they don't have all of the knowledge and experience around equalities issues, around politics. We don't tell people you can't be a trade unionist. We bring them in, we show them understanding each other's lived experience and how to stand up for one another. And it naturally takes people along in that way. So I think that's what we have to do in your party. If we actually want to create change, we really need a mass mobilising force. That will not happen with purity tests. So it's not about accepting that the divisions are out there. It's about overcoming, and how do we bring people together and build those bridges to make that happen.
So you did mention the Green Party and Hannah Spencer. Of course, again, there's many different views within your party. Some have criticised the Green Party for being sort of pro-NATO, for example. I mean, what's your view on working with other parties, on working with the Greens? And I think NATO has been sort of a contention in sort of saying your party's different than the Greens on this particular policy, which is absolutely fine. But given that the majority of people in this country really back NATO and the Greens are surging, how do you navigate your view and your party in relation to other left-wing parties like the Greens who are kind of popular, and in terms of your own personal view on policy?
Well, the conference decision about our strategy going forward was really clear that we're going to be targeted. We're going to be trying to establish ourselves further in communities, supporting the independent socialists that are already there, and being really strategic about that. And for me, that does mean thinking about how we work alongside the Greens. I do think we will have quite a different proposition going forwards. I think that there are clearly similarities, and I don't see the Greens as my enemy. I know where my enemies are. That is Starmer and Farage, and they're the people that we'll be taking the fight to. But with the Greens, I can completely understand why people have, moved away from the infighting they've seen in your party and they're going there. But I think that if we get this right in your party, we will be building quite a different proposition that's built from a really solid socialist core that can't be blown off track. And we will be speaking potentially to slightly different audiences in different places. And so I can see that, especially right now, there is absolutely room for both. It's going to take all of the forces on the progressive side to stand up against Farage. So we shouldn't waste our energy on fighting each other. We need to focus on our building, getting out there in communities and working alongside the Greens where they exist already. So I was not at all thinking that it'd be right for us to stand from your party now for various reasons. We would want members to have a say in who would be the candidate for us, and we aren't in a position to facilitate that properly structurally internally in the party until we have the CEC who could actually oversee that, and the selection process would have to be done right for people to get behind it. And then there's the obvious proposition at the ballot box, and would that be dividing the vote when we aren't ready? And really, it comes down to policy platforms as well. When you've said, some people are saying we're an anti-NATO party. I think there are many things that people are attracted to your party about this solid socialist base, but we haven't got a fully formed policy platform yet to say where those dividing lines are. And I think it's preemptive for people to say what our membership will decide. We need to create this party well, and then our members' voices will actually be paramount in setting policy. So those sorts of division lines on policy, I think they're going to come, but we aren't there yet, are we?
Yeah, that's true. I think speaking to people, a lot of people saying actually there's no policy from your party, which I appreciate. That's something that's going to be sort of built as the party develops. Speaking to some people from grassroots left, a lot of people are saying, and obviously you can completely change the characterization if you disagree, but people sort of said people on the many slate are radical social democrats. They want to fix capitalism, but not necessarily end it, implement policies which we all agree with, public ownership, dealing with inequality, climate change, taxes on the rich, for example. And there are some people, again, maybe on the grassroots level, who aren't part of the slate, who say, we want an explicitly socialist platform, which is actually looking at things such as the democratic ownership of the economy and the workers owning the means of production, far more radical politics. For you, do you want your party to be really only campaigning on sort of the social democratic, very similar to the Jeremy Corbyn 2017 programme? Or do you actually, are you in favour of more of a radical approach where we should start talking about more radical ideas of the ownership of the economy?
I think you're right, this is the absolute clear dividing line, isn't it, about where we're going to be going forwards. Do we want to have politics that connects with ordinary people and we take them with us about that socialist view? Or do we talk in academic terms in ways that alienate people and that doesn't connect in a mass way? And it's not to say there isn't a place for analysis. Of course there is. And we've got that rooted in our beliefs, and the socialist alternative that we will be putting forward will be rooted in that. But for me, it's really about communication. Would I choose politics that came very close to winning and getting into government, or would I choose the politics of sex that have remained tiny minority groups for decades? I think that's pretty clear. If we're serious about trying to achieve something for ordinary people, we have to communicate with them. Like I said about Mandani, he's doing a super job of that. And I believe that we will take people with us and we will show that there is a socialist alternative to the issues that they're facing if we get that communication right. So it isn't about a lack of ambition for social change. I don't think that's the division that's here. It's really about how we'll get there. And I think we have to be quite disciplined in our messages. There's a place for analysis and there's a place for communication. So if we mistake our culture for one of a debating club and think that that will connect with ordinary people, I just think it's a bit of a dead end. It's the route to the infighting. We all enjoy a good discussion around those issues on the left, and I'm happy to get involved. I love debating as well. I want to do that, but that isn't the way we're going to win. We don't do that with the public. We show them, look, this is what it will mean for you. When we, even on issues as simple as the NHS, there's still a lot of confusion out there about why it's really going so wrong. Lots of people don't understand the impacts that the privatisation has had, or the impacts that not funding social care, not having a national care service, all of the things that build into extracting profits from something that should obviously be completely a public service. We have to make sure that we're explaining those things to people in a good way. We focus on issues, say, around the monarchy. Straight away, people have stopped listening to things that really mean something to them.
Yeah, things I sympathise with kind of both sides here. Like in one sense, because my personal politics is extremely radical, right? I mean, I'm like, yes, let's have democratic ownership of the means of production, right? But I also do sympathise with the fact that, let's be honest, and I say this a lot, that when you speak to people, people think socialism is just when the government does stuff, right? And I think if we haven't even had a conversation on what socialism actually is, I understand the difficulty going to the public and going beyond where they're at. Okay. And I think the public are broadly on the side with social democratic econ left policy, like public ownership, for example. The only thing, though, is that one might say, and maybe this is just me just saying it, is where if you're more on the side of, and I'm not, again, I don't want to put you in camps, but just for the interest of brevity, if you're more like we want to campaign on more of the social democratic side of it, what makes you different to the Greens? Because the Greens arguably are doing that social democratic, public ownership, wealth taxes, reducing inequality, and that's really connecting with people. And other people argue in your party, maybe it's a lot slower. Maybe we don't get a response from public quite like straight away, but our more radical politics has more of a sort of a long-term strategy. Whereas if we're going to go and talk about the quote unquote bread and butter issues, which might connect with the public quicker, then how do you differentiate yourself between you and the Greens? If you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 2 points to that. Firstly, the increase in membership in the Greens hasn't seen an increase in community organising. Right, so lots of people are flocking to Zach's message, and it is his current message, and I'm glad to see him doing it. We need all those voices on the left. But we are trying to build quite a different proposition here, and that is one that is really rooted and solid and won't be blown off course. Coming from the Labour Party, I tried to fight for socialism within the Labour Party for a very long time. We can see how that went. It was absolutely impossible when you've got such divergent forces within one party, and the Greens still does have that. So whether they would be able to put those policies into practice, will they come up against some of the similar difficulties that we've had? How solidly rooted are they in that base? That would be my question. Whereas we want to show that right now. If we start organising communities, the best way for people to understand how it can work to have a different system is to get people doing it together now in their communities. So you could take someone that doesn't understand any of the theory of socialism, but they see standing together and the impacts that has when they create change. That really demonstrates to people how they can get on board with things without having to go through all of those theoretical frameworks. So we want to be rooted in communities and getting active, whether it's in workplaces, whether it's out there on the streets. All of that activity will be a key part of showing that we are going to create change together and they all need to be a part of it. So I do think there's a different approach, as well as the origins of our politics. I think, we are going to be rooted in the working class, and we're going to be getting out there and doing as we go, as well as having the right messages alongside Zach.
Jen, A real pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on Turn Left, and good luck with the campaign.
Thank you so much.